Your experience interviewing for a job does not match, has not ever really matched your experience working in that company day to day. There's always been a leak. What we've seen in the last 10 years are companies searching for ways to be able to close that daylight, for them to be able to offer a candidate experience. Companies like McKinsey have started adopting more and more what feel like video games, but literally virtual interactions that are, again, trying to see how you think directly as opposed to asking about it. Skillfully, we take that one step further, and now we're going to say, hey, let us see exactly what you could do in this job. Let me see what you, in this role for 15, for 20 minutes, what you can actually produce. But that future of hiring, the kind of trajectory that we're on, it's very safe to assume that that trend is only going to continue.
All righty. Welcome to Job Ready. I am Charlie, the entrepreneur, the smub. Wait a minute. Maybe I have a dandy crisis today. But anyway, we'll talk about it at a different date.
I'm Jeff, the brand guy.
And I remain Professor James.
Hey, Jeff, we have a really good-looking, interesting, distinguished guest in the studio with us today. I know, right? Exactly. Why don't you...
What's up, guys? Nice to meet you. Nice to be here.
Oh, we're so happy to have you here. And it's my pleasure to introduce our guest, Brett Waikart. Brett serves as CEO and co-founder of Skillfully, a public benefit corporation committed to transforming hiring by focusing on people's real abilities instead of their resumes.
Brett, welcome to the Job Ready. I'm very excited for today's conversation. But before we start, I mean, when I think about assessment, color code, predictive index, emergent analytics, I mean, all of us in corporate America have done probably a handful of these assessments, right? So tell me something I don't already know about assessment, please.
Sure. First off, I just want to say it's great to be here with you guys. I've been looking forward to this conversation for quite some time. What the effa did it take so long for me to get here? That's a great question, Charlie. The way we think about assessment is just a little bit different than I think how it's kind of thought of typically. I think we all have an idea of what it means to take a test. We've all been in school. We all have to turn in book reports. We have taken the SAT, these multiple choice questions. To what you've talked about, the predictive index, pi metrics, Plum, there's all of these tools out there where, in a certain sense, assessment is exactly the same across all of those. It is some standardized test, some quiz of knowledge. It's a bunch of questions with a bunch of answers. You got to hope you pick the right one. That's completely different from how we think about assessment. What we think is now possible is that instead of assessments being some abstracted list of questions and answers that you need to cram the night before, you need to be able to make sure you read the full book front and back and be able to recite that knowledge all over again. Similar assessments in this modern age are going to start feeling a lot more like a video game, like an immersive experience that actually resembles more of what you're going to find in real life than what you might find in a classroom. Assessments for Skillfully, for my company, are modeled as scenarios, but extremely lifelike, dynamic, interactive interactions, simulations of real work that's done out there in the world every single day. Our product focus is to make sure that those simulations are a 100% match to how work is actually done, actually experienced. And the idea there is that the evaluation that comes from our assessment, it's not going to be a reflection of some book knowledge or something you might have learned years ago. It's going to be a reflection of what you need to be able to do day to day when you actually enter the workforce. It is real life. That idea of thinking of assessment not as sitting down with your number 2 pencil and your Scantron scorecard, but thinking about assessment as just really what we go through every single day, just a simulation of our real life. That's the piece that I think is different when we think about assessment, and certainly where we think this is going to go.
Wow, Brett. So when you say where this is going to go, I'll tell you what comes to mind immediately for me is, our audience, everybody wants to be able to peer around the corner, and see what the future holds. Nobody has a crystal ball, but I know Skillfully is in a lot of conversations with employers who are super innovative, embracing this kind of new paradigm of assessment that you guys are building. You know, assessment flows right into work. What's the future of work? What are you seeing? Like, what are the conversations that you've had? What's your perspective for entry level talent specifically?
Yeah. Um, I'm going to split what the future of hiring looks like from the future of work. And there's really interesting things to go into in either one of those. But let me sit with the future of hiring for just 1 second. If we look back historically over the last 50 years of like just on average, how employers have gone about finding talent for that person coming into their first job, that early career role, just getting their career started, what we see is that the process really didn't change for a very, very, very long time. This idea that you as a student, you had a resume, you had a description of maybe some of the past work you've done. You put that up against the job description, and then hopefully you get an interview. And in that interview, we're going to try to understand. We're going to ask a lot of questions. We're going to maybe ask you to take a couple surveys, to do a couple things, to understand what skills you have. But the amount of daylight between what you're asked to do in those processes, the questions you're asked in an interview, the way you write a resume and respond to application questions, any kind of more traditional, more conventional assessment tools that we've known from 20, 25 years prior, there's always a huge amount of daylight between what you're asked to do in that hiring process and then what you're going to be doing on the job. Those are two completely different things. Your experience interviewing for a job does not match, has not ever really matched your experience working in that company day to day. There's always been a leap. What we've seen in the last 10 years are companies searching for ways to be able to close that daylight, for them to be able to offer a candidate experience when you're going through interviews, you're going through that recruitment process that gives you more of a taste of what a day in the life looks like and gives the employer more of a picture of what you might do when you're in that position. Forage is a platform everyone knows, and they're a day in the life platform. They want you to know and feel what it is to be in an internship, to be in a role. Companies like McKinsey have started adopting more and more what feel like video games, but literally virtual interactions that are, again, trying to see how you think directly as opposed to asking about it. Skillfully, we take that one step further, and now we're going to say, hey, let us see exactly what you could do in this job. Let me see what you, in this role for 15, for 20 minutes, what you can actually produce. But that future of hiring, the kind of trajectory that we're on, it's very safe to assume that that trend is only going to continue. That as you apply for jobs, what's going to become less important is how you maybe describe yourself in the abstract sense, how you think about kind of describing your own profile. And what's going to be much more important is you showing this is how I actually can work in the conditions of the particular job. We're going to see that recruitment experience become a hair's breadth removed away from the experience of what it is to actually work in that company. That's a good thing. And I want to say this is a more meritocratic, a more accessible, a more inclusive future where we care less. Employers will care less about the pedigree of the school you went to or the GPA or what kind of clubs you joined. None of that matters. What matters is how you can perform the skills required for the job. And this is going to allow people to show what they're capable of, to show their potential and be seen for that. That is incredibly exciting. That is real progress, but that's what we expect.
Hey,
Brett,
Brett.
thank you for giving us that brief overview. Let's just say that, I am a university student and I've been studying and I want to go into a certain industry. In the traditional model, it's pretty clear you've described, and we all know how you prepare for an interview. So now this is like, okay, come and do the job in a way virtually as part of your interview. So how could early job seekers or even people that are veterans or reskilling prepare themselves so that they do have I don't want to say a competitive advantage, but to increase their likelihood of getting the job that they would like to have?
Great question. The best case scenario is that every student has access to a platform, not exclusively, not just Skillfully, but a platform like Skillfully that allows them to demonstrate their skills in a forum where employers are looking at it. Like, that is the express purpose of our platform, but we're not alone. We're not going to be alone. There are more companies that are going to step forward and do this. So the most straightforward answer, but the one that maybe is not as accessible as we really want for your full audience, is to seek out those platforms that allow you to demonstrate skills in a relevant context for that employer, whether there are simulations, whether it is some demonstration of your ability. That's the most important piece. But let's call a spade a spade. We're in a world where this is wonderful technology that is just now being adopted. We're probably a couple years away from this being available on every campus and every career service center. So what can somebody do right now? Somebody's a junior, a senior, thinking about what that next job is going to be. The most important thing for recruiters, for employers, and that's who I spend my time with every single day. We are working with the hiring teams that are responsible for campus recruiting programs, that are responsible for this type of a recruiting effort. What they say constantly is that they no longer really place the same level of importance they once did on someone's LinkedIn or handshake profiles, on their resume, on a cover letter. Because listen, in a world of Gen AI, chat GPTs that are everywhere, it's free. It is meaningless to create that content and submit that against the job description. What employers are hungry for, what they are asking for in the current moment, they want to see examples of you doing work that matches how work is done in their workplace. And that final piece is super important. When you're applying to a particular job as a student, the question to ask yourself first is, well, what are the tasks that I am going to be expected to be able to complete when I'm on the job? What is the work that's going to be asked of me in those first 12 months, those first 24 months on the job? Put yourself in that position. And you can do that by speaking to people who were just hired. Speak to your alumni network. Find out how to get a really granular sense of the work to be done in that role. And then think about the work you have either already done, whether it's school projects, it's past internships, it's past work, or work that you can do as you're going through this, as you're going through the recruitment process. It doesn't need to be something that takes you days or weeks or months. Just think about a single unit of work, a memo, a report, some little bit of analysis. And when you apply, don't just lead with a description of, I've done A, B, C, and D. The description is cheap. Everybody, whether they've done that work or not, is leading with a description of themselves. Lead with the actual artifact of that work. Shoot an email to somebody that is probably close to the hiring team and said, hey, I know your team thinks about doing analysis in the oil and gas industry. Here's a report I wrote up on this one company. I would love to talk about it. Lead with that example of work relevant to what they're expecting of you in the first year. And I guarantee your hit rate of breaking through the noise of all of these thousands and hundreds of thousands, millions of other applications that are getting sent around every single day, that is the clearest way for you to communicate to the recruiter that you have the skills for the job, you're serious about it, and you're qualified for that role.
Hey Brett, how do you digest? I mean, let's dive into the hiring manager for a second here. Love what you're saying so far.
Yeah.
But you're number one, if you're a hiring manager, and we've heard this very often as of late, for every single position that we have available, hundreds, if not thousands of applications. So realistically, how do you have the time to digest through all of those writings or reports or analysis? Number one. Number two is, if you think about, how do you internalize it? Because in the past, when you are hiring somebody, you can have an assessment, and as part of that assessment, they said you're more likely to do A, B, and C. Your personality has a tendency to do X, Y, and Z. And as a team, as a manager, I like to build my team with complementary skill sets, with complementary personalities, right? Because I certainly don't want a bunch of alpha male, or might not be the appropriate thing to, but like very aggressive individuals on my team, where I want people who's more willing to give and take. So I use some of these assessment to construct a team that I want, with different personalities, with different preferences and MO, if you will. So how does a hiring manager, leverage this in a way to internalize, to identify the candidates?
Great, fantastic questions. Here, let me pull the curtain back for your audience. Here's the dirty little secret. You're asking, how are hiring managers dealing with this inbound volume, this onslaught of applications? We live in this world of Chat GPT can perfectly keyword match your resume to a job description and then automate you sending it out. The dirty little secret is that hiring managers can't. They cannot deal with the current realities today. The system is breaking in real time. What every single company uses, and everyone's figured this out, but this is the game that's being played right now. Every single company is the first layer, the first filter they take to these incoming applications is whatever their applicant tracking system may be. And that ATS is going to be able to keyword match between the incoming resumes and then the job description itself. Well, if job seekers in mass, and the adoption of Chat GPT by the Gen Zers who are just getting jobs right now has broken every single rule of adoption we've ever seen. It's near 100% adoption, folks using these tools. Well, if every single application that's getting turned into that job opportunity, to that ATS, is already perfectly keyword matched, it's a perfect mirror to what that description is asking for, the ATS doesn't have any way to filter those out. And so it just basically puts that on the lap of the actual hiring manager. So the hiring manager, who might have been able to count on 95% of the applications coming in getting filtered out, all of a sudden 100% of them are making their way through that filter, and the manager just needs to now start thinking about, well, do I brute force read through all of these? How do I get through this? The problem then, like the sad reality, is that once it gets past that first filter, every hiring team, no matter how large the company, they're scrappy, they're resource constrained, they're doing the best they can with whatever resources HR has been allotted. It is not equipped for a 10x to 20x increase in volume of inbound applications like they're seeing today. What ends up happening then is that they only have enough hours in the day to be able to get to 2%, 3%, 5%, maybe 10% of those applications, and then they make their decisions based off of that. But you as a job seeker, if you're purely relying on a Chat GPT tool to rewrite your resume and submit it for you, you are losing in a numbers game today. That's the unfortunate truth. These tools are great when they're used by an individual, but when everybody uses them together, it's impossible to differentiate between them. So the short answer is, users today, job seekers today, need to look for opportunities to short circuit, to go around that applicant tracking system. They need to find those ways to build relationships with people that are working on the teams where they can show, I can do the job. Look at this product. Look at this artifact. That is the best way that we're seeing folks start these conversations, get past that first screen, and get the interview and get the job. That's the way to kind of play this game correctly. Once you then start looking into, Charlie, your question about, hey, how do I start building the perfect team that has that mix of attributes, that mix of qualities? This is a question as old as time. The way that you're thinking about doing it is admirable. That's exactly how this needs to be done. But again, this data very rarely gets surfaced in the standard conventional application process just because of this mass volume that's coming in. It's stuff that then becomes subjectively judged in the interview process, where you're trying to find the right kind of personalities. That's a later stage, bottom of the funnel kind of question to ask once you've gotten past that initial qualification stage.
Wow, Brett. So So we're looking at it right now from the standpoint of job seekers operating alone and finding an edge. Even though it's a meritocracy, there's this tsunami of content coming at the employers. But
Exactly right.
job seekers coming out of a university don't have to be alone. So let's say you had a magic wand based on everything that you've said. How could universities prepare to support students in this type of an environment?
Universities do a great job of laying the foundation for students in exactly this regard. Every single university invests in their career service center, and that career center has relationships with different employers. It's not going to be with every employer in the workforce across every single sector, but that career service center has programs that can give you the opportunity to understand, again, the type of work that's done in a particular job. And then they have an alumni network. They have access to people that you can start reaching out to build those relationships. The sad fact of the matter is that when you look nationally, the average is that only between 25 and 30% of actively enrolled students will ever step foot in a career service center, will ever enter that threshold to be able to make use of those resources. It's not perfect. By no means. These are, again, just like the HR folks on the employer side, career service centers are chronically under-resourced for an impossible job to be a portal for their students to every role out there. And there's a lot of great companies, EFA included, Skillfully included, that sit there and try to reinforce that offering and work that way. For students today, though, the most important thing to do is to build that relationship with somebody who you can show your work product to, so you can lead with that artifact. That career service center is the best place to start that work from because they offer so many different ways to open up that kind of a conversation. I'd say overemphasize, over-index on leaning into those resources, and to the best that you can, don't make the choice of over-indexing in a numbers game where you are losing, you have a losing probability. You're walking into a casino where the odds are stacked against you in a really unfortunate way. Do what you can to build those relationships and lean into that. And honestly, it's almost always through the Career Service Center that's available.
Well, Brett, I feel like we started out a conversation that became the future of job seeking, which we haven't had here before, and we're super grateful for your perspective today. But Brett, a lot of our audience, people write to us and they say, how do I learn more about Skillfully or about Brett or about this philosophy and approach and a lot of the things he referred to today? If one of them was here sitting in front of you right now and said, hey, I want to follow, I want to learn more, what do they read? What do they follow?
Yep.
What would you say?
I'm on LinkedIn. And first off, reach out, connect. I love it. I love having conversations there and just kind of building up that community. But we write a lot about not just the future of hiring, but then the future of work as well. And I know we didn't get the chance to talk about it today, but maybe this could be a future episode down the road if you guys are kind enough to have me back.
Yes.
The thing that's most fascinating right now is that the way the workforce is organized, the way that it's been organized for that last 100 years, the last 200 years, it bears zero resemblance to how the workforce of 5 years in the future, of 10 years in the future, will be organized. The 2025, the year ahead, is going to be the year that, the way we say it, that AI is going to show up to the job for the first time, that AI agents are going to play an active role in the workforce. And that is not a bad thing. AI in the workforce is not this enormous disruptor that's going to be a job killer, a job eliminator. It is going to reshuffle the tasks that people do. And there are some things that are really important to consider to be able to be successful in that kind of a world. But there's a lot to talk about there. There's a lot to read. Our conversations happen. We have a blog. We have a LinkedIn page. We'd love to connect with people there. And honestly, would love to come back and just keep talking about the world that students today are inevitably walking into when they enter the workforce in a couple of years. I just want to say it's all of this is a message of hope. It's a message of opportunity. This future workforce, there are so many great people working to make sure that opportunity is accessible in a more inclusive, more meritocratic way. Do not be afraid of these tools, of adoption of it. Lean into it, learn about it. There's so much opportunity available.
Love it, Brett. Hey, quick question before we'll let you go. What is the biggest barrier to a mass adoption of Skillfully to the employers?
Inertia. There's been so many decades spent building up the Taj Mahals of hiring practices that all focus on the resume. That is the foundational assumption that a hiring manager, they can't directly observe every single person who applies to a job, but everybody has a resume. So let's do the best we can with that. And so we're in this stage of kind of tearing down that old architecture and rebuilding that up. And that is a process for sure. There's just a lot of investment and time and effort and energy that's gone into making that old process as good as it can be. And we're just in this new technological transition period where there's this bright future available and we're going up the adoption curve. With time, it'll be inevitable, but facing that inertia and figuring out how to help folks make that transition, that's the work for sure.
Thanks, Brett. We've learned a lot from your perspective today. Really appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, that's great. Guys, this has been a real pleasure here. I hope to come back soon.
On behalf of Job Ready, this is Charlie the Entrepreneur.
Jeff the Brand Guy.
And Professor James.
Big thanks to Brett from Skillfully for sharing his important work with us today, and also to our loyal and growing audience for joining us today.
Yeah, as ever, big gratitude and respect to all of you listening in. Job Ready is an employer-funded financial aid podcast. You can visit us on the EFFA site at effa.io/ all one word, Job Ready. EFFA helps employers source, vet, and prepare university talent.
Well, is there anything else we want to say, folks?
We got nothing but love in our hearts, Professor James.
All right, well, let's spread that around. Okay, well, that's a wrap, folks. We are EFFA over and out.